1985. Steve Jobs was worth over $200 million. He had built Apple into a tech empire. Then his own company fired him. What he did next was the greatest revenge in business history. 1976. Steve Jobs co-founded Apple in his parents' garage. He was 21 years old. The Apple II became one of the first mass-produced personal computers. It was a massive success. 1984. Jobs launched the Macintosh. It changed everything. By age 30, Steve Jobs was worth over $200 million. Apple became a tech giant worth billions. He was on top of the world. Jobs convinced John Sculley, a top Pepsi executive, to become Apple CEO. His pitch was legendary. Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life? Or come with me and change the world? But Jobs and Sculley clashed constantly. Two visionaries, two egos. The Apple board was forced to choose. They chose Sculley. May 1985, Steve Jobs was stripped of all power. Then he was fired. For his own company, Jobs was devastated, publicly humiliated, forced out of the building he built. The media called it the most spectacular corporate failure in Silicon Valley history. He fell into depression. He had lost everything he'd built. His purpose, his identity, his company. Friends said he'd never been so low. But Steve Jobs wasn't the type to give up. He had a choice: accept defeat or plan the perfect revenge. He chose revenge, but this wouldn't be quick. It would take patience, strategy, and 12 years of his life. He would make them all pay, and it would be spectacular. 1985, Jobs founded Next Computer Company. He poured $12 million of his own money into it. But this wasn't about money. This was about building weapons. The Next Computer was a masterpiece, revolutionary technology, and Jobs hired away Apple's best engineers. First strike, 1986. Jobs bought a small graphics company from George Lucas for $10 million. He renamed it Pixar. Everyone thought he was crazy. 1987. Pixar released Toy Story, the first fully computer-animated film. It was a massive success, changed cinema forever. Pixar's IPO made Steve Jobs a billionaire again. Now he had the money, the reputation, and the leverage. Meanwhile, at Apple, everything was falling apart. After Jobs left, Apple stock crashed from $60 to $4. They lost 80% of their market share to Microsoft Windows. John Sculley's decisions failed repeatedly. The board fired him in 1993. Karma. But it was too late. By 1996, Apple was losing $1 billion per year, near bankruptcy. The company Steve Jobs built was dying. December 1996. Apple was desperate. They needed a new operating system. They had one option: buy Next. Jobs made them beg. He negotiated $429 million for Next. The company that fired him was now paying him nearly $500 million. February 1997. Steve Jobs returned to Apple as an advisor, but everyone knew he was back. July 1997. The board fired the CEO. Steve Jobs became interim CEO. Translation: he was in complete control. Immediately, Jobs fired everyone who betrayed him. The entire board, gone. Sculley's allies, gone. 70% of Apple's products, canceled. He told Apple, "We're going back to basics. We're going to focus on making insanely great products." The revenge had begun, and over the next 14 years, he would destroy everyone who doubted him. 1998, the iMac launched. Colorful, simple, revolutionary. It was a massive hit. Apple returned to profitability. Apple stock rose 400%. The company everyone thought was dead was alive again. And Jobs was just getting started. 2001, iPod. 1,000 songs in your pocket. It didn't just succeed. It destroyed the entire music industry's business model. iTunes dominated digital music. Apple sold billions of songs. Record labels who once ignored him were now begging for deals. January 2007. Macworld. Jobs walked on stage and said, "Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone." He pulled out the iPhone. The audience gasped. The tech world would never be the same. The iPhone destroyed Nokia, bankrupted Blackberry, made Motorola irrelevant. Microsoft's mobile plans? Dead. Everyone who doubted him? Crushed. Apple stores became the highest revenue per square foot of any retailer on earth. Higher than Tiffany's. Higher than luxury brands. Selling technology. 2010, iPad. Created an entire new category of computing. Sold 15 million units in 9 months. Competitors spent years trying to catch up. Jobs had created an ecosystem. Mac, iPod, iPhone, iPad, iTunes, App Store. They all worked together perfectly. Competitors had products. Apple had an empire. By 2011, Apple became the most valuable company on earth, worth over $350 billion. The company they fired Steve Jobs from was now the biggest company in human history. Steve Jobs had become the most celebrated CEO in history, not just in tech, in all of business. Time Magazine, Fortune, everyone called him a genius, a visionary, a legend. The man they said was finished had become immortal. So what happened to Steve Jobs' enemies? John Sculley, the man who fired him, fired from Apple, started multiple businesses, all failed, faded into obscurity. The board members who voted him out, every single one was fired or resigned. None achieved anything notable after Apple. Footnotes in history. Competitors who mocked the iPhone, Nokia, bankrupt, Blackberry, irrelevant. Microsoft Mobile dead, Palm gone, Motorola, sold for parts. While Jobs was changing the world, John Sculley was Googling himself, reading about how he made the worst decision in business history. Every iPhone sold is a reminder of their failure. Every Apple store is a monument to their mistake. Their legacy? They're only remembered as the people who fired Steve Jobs. His legacy? Immortal. The greatest comeback in business history. So what made Steve Jobs' revenge so perfect? It wasn't just about destroying his enemies. It was about proving them fundamentally wrong. They said he was difficult, perfectionist, impossible to work with. He proved that perfectionism builds empires. Compromisers build nothing. They wanted short-term profits. He thought long-term, built Next, built Pixar, became a billionaire, then used that leverage to take back his company. They chose profits over innovation. He chose innovation, and it made him the most profitable company on earth. The greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's becoming so successful that they become irrelevant. Steve Jobs passed away in 2011, but his revenge was complete. He had built the most valuable company in history, changed how we use technology, and proved everyone who doubted him catastrophically wrong. Today, Apple is worth over $3 trillion. The people who fired Steve Jobs are forgotten. The lesson? Never count out someone with vision. Never underestimate someone with nothing left to lose. And never, ever fire Steve Jobs. What do you think? Was Steve Jobs' revenge justified? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories about legendary business comebacks and epic revenge, hit that subscribe button. Because the world of business is full of people waiting for their moment to strike back. And we're just getting started.